In this episode of The Human Advisor, Dr. Preston Cherry of Concurrent Financial Planning joins me to talk about how money is a part of the human condition and how we all need to do an honest self-assessment to realize our financial goals. You don't want to miss it? Tune in.
It is about the human condition, life-money balance is. It is succinctly letting your life lead your money and not your money leading your life. It is not to be reactive if you can.
Dr. Preston Cherry joins me on the show. Preston, how are you?
This is Arte. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really well. Now, I feel like you and I, we had a Zoom session once.
Yes.
And we just met. In this space, FinTwit, financial services, it can become very small once you know the right people, you meet good people.
Right.
And it's a pleasure to meet you in person for the first time.
Finally, no doubt.
I want to jump right into it, man. I think for me, I didn't get the memo as a kid because we weren't having a lot of conversations about money at the dinner table.
Right.
And what I see from you through and through is somebody who's an educator. But before we get to that, let's talk about money and your first experiences with money. Talk about your household and how money played a part in it.
Well, we talked about money often.
Really?
Yeah, we did. And a lot of people now, talk about money through, or want to talk about money through like fintech.
Right.
Conversations don't happen that often.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I guess fintech apps are trying to happen a lot because people are trying to fill that gap. It's getting a lot better with the younger generation. Information is passing a lot more because information is readily available. But just because information is just readily available, access doesn't mean the conversations are deep. That doesn't mean that.
So let's talk about that. When you grew up, were your parents talking about money, and what were those conversations?
Well, it really wasn't, hey, let's sit around the table and talk about, this or that, or the money thing. It was just more about living it. Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like when an event jumped off. Mm-hmm. All right, this is what's coming down the pipe. So let's prepare for that. If it was an event, a life event, somebody may have gotten laid off, or somebody was on the come up. Mm-hmm. All right, so but there was an elevator, and it wasn't always like negative. Mm-hmm. It was something positive as well. But my dad used to call it, he still does. It's one of our household things. Roll and adapt. Mm-hmm. You got to roll and adapt. So it was survival skills, but it was also adapt. It was leveling up, but also rolling as well. So those were money things. It was just conversation. It was communicating. You don't need to app for that.
Right.
You don't need to app for that. It was, hey, we were talking over. It could have been we watched a movie or something. We got some food. It could have been pizza. It was like, hey y'all, this is what's about to happen. All right, we're about to do this, this, and this. And that was a money conversation, but it wasn't, hey, let's talk about a budget or this or this. This is what's about to happen for the next. Do y'all have any questions? Let's get ready for this.
So I think that something that you said, roll and adapt, right, is something that I feel like a lot of underrepresented communities really, that's how they manage their finances, right?
Yeah.
They're reacting instead of being proactive. And I think in some regards that teach you, how to be tough, right, how to be gritty, right, how to make ends meet when you have no other way. And I think a lot of us, right, a lot of us have that trait inherently, like I have to make a way. But there's another part of that that's planning, that's patience, that's really drawing out a blueprint to ensure that you'll be successful. And that kind of brings me to you. How did you find financial services? Because you're an academic, right? You're a doctor, got your degree, I think, at Texas Tech University, right? So take me along the journey as you found financial services and starting your firm, Concurrent Financial Planning.
Well, I started at PVAMU.
Okay.
So Prairie View University, so I grew up in Houston, born in Kansas City, raised in Houston. And, well, I had a professor. Well, he's still a mentor of mine. I don't talk to him often, but when we chop it up, we do talk. And Dr. Jan Jasper. And actually, before that, Dr. Freddie Richards, I had a good friend of mine that I grew up with, and his dad taught at Prairie View. And I grew up in the suburbs, but I went to Prairie View because I wanted a culture change at the time.
Okay.
And Dr. Richards walked my application down, because he always talked about HBCUs. He was like, well, one of y'all are going to come out of the suburbs, and you're going to go to, you're going to go to HBCU. Nobody wanted to go.
This was in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I wanted to go, because I wanted a culture change at the time. I could have went to, Texas A&M, this, that, and the other, but I wanted to go. I wanted to experience that. And he walked my application to PV, and I got accepted, and I went to PV. And then I took this personal finance class there. And I didn't know personal finance was a thing, but like I said, we always talked about kind of money experience in our house. We had a general ledger in our house, old school. I was introduced to a matching program at my house. We had an allowance, and we used to take some of that allowance, put it in this ledger, write it down, put cash in there, and keep a book like that. So it was a matching program, but we also had to take money out of there when something happened. Anyway, my point about that is when I took this personal finance class, I didn't know personal finance was actually a thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't know it was called something.
Right.
Until Dr. Jasper put me on game. All right. And then when he told me about it, he was like, okay, there's a budget. And I remember he told me, he said, okay, I want y'all to write out what your first year may look like in finances when you graduate. He said, write out these line items. And he said, what's your clothing budget? And I said, I said, 0. I already got a suit. And I said, look at my suit. My suit's right here. It kind of happened to be career day. I remember something like that. He was like, no, you're going to need a whole new,
right.
apparatus, right? And so he started thinking about those things, right? And he happened to know somebody at Texas Tech. He had some friends there. And he introduced the whole class to Texas Tech. There was a program at the time with, I think it was ING or something like that, between them and Texas Tech, and it was creating some diversity or something like that. And we took a tour, campus tour, and we took the class down there and introduced us to Texas Tech because he had some friends there, and we spent a couple of days out there, and they introduced us to the financial planning program right there, which is a legacy program, been around for a long time. And that's how it started. I think that was in 2002. And from then on, I was a teller at the time. I was a bank teller at the time. And I kept working at the bank. But I think about 5 or 6 years later, I ended up going back and doing the master's program. But that introduction, and it leads into like mentorship and all that type of stuff, is just at the right time. And to wrap this story up, I remember when I finished Prairie View, and my dad and my mother, when I graduated, it was in 2003. And I finished, and we walked outside from the Baby Dome. It was where they played basketball. We walked out, and I said, we made it. I'm finished. We finished with graduation and all that. And my dad said, yeah, well, we're done. And my Dr. Jasper said, no, you're not done. You got a lot more to go, a lot more to do. My dad said, I'm done. He said, you're gonna have to take him from here, Dr. J. So my dad and my mom took me as far as I could go. They knew that they needed to pass me on, so I could go further, and they did. Because Dr. Jasper introduced me to tech, and then I went on further from there.
So what I see on social is that you're very influential, right? I think there's a guy that works now at a planning firm in St. Louis, right? And he was the first one who kind of introduced me to you because he was like, this is the person that really set my mind on wanting to become a financial planner. Adaro.
Oh, yeah.
Adaro.
Odaro, yeah.
Yeah, so he's up in St. Louis. But I wanted to know, like, what inspired you to become a financial planner at that point, right? Because obviously you had some training, though informal, through your household, but what was the thing that was like, hey, I want to do this and I want to help inspire financial planners like Adaro and my clients to live better lives? Well,
I didn't really get the bug until I went back for the master's degree, and really about the degree itself. I just felt that once I got back onto the campus at Tech, I said I wanted to do something different because I was in banking at the time, and I was just like, I had relationships, and I was like, I want to do something different. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just know I wanted to do something different. So it was the different bug. I said, let me try. So it was just, at that time, it was just, let me try something different. And when I did that and I got into the mix, then that's when it clicked.
What made you stick with it?
It was it was the transformational experience at the time. It was the aha moment for me, and see how I just walked out. I use that with my clients now. It is that aha moment. Mm-hmm. It is that it factor. You can't explain an it to someone unless they've gone through an it. Because we use that as planners, right? It's very hard to explain a value proposition sometimes because it's just sometimes no tangibility. That's why we integrate, financial psychology and things, because you have to, draw out those emotions, the why. I know that's cliche, but have people share their stories, and people share their stories. That's that glue. I was talking to someone the other day. It's like, remember back in like first or second grade, you just always had to put like Elmer's glue on over and over again because you had that construction paper and it would just slide off because it would just slide. It wouldn't stick. So you had to put some more glue on it and then slide. But now we got Gorilla Glue. And you put that one little dab on there and it sticks. If people share their story, they walk themselves in there and they have their aha moment. And once they have that aha moment and they have that it, they're like, oh, okay, I got that it thing. And then when I had my it thing, when I went back, I was like, wow, this is what this can do. Mm-hmm. And then I started remembering my stories, what you asked for me about, at the top that you asked me, I was like, okay, this is what this can do.
What was the it thing though, right? So when you were going through the program and you saw like, this is something I want to do full time. I want to give people the same revelation that I've experienced through understanding my finance. What was the thing that was like, hey, this was so transformational for me. Mm-hmm. I want to give this same feeling to a lot of other people, because I remember I worked at a firm coming straight out of school, and they told me they hired me specifically because I had grit. They're like, you're a gritty dude, we want to hire you. But when I went there, I saw that people were able to use their dollars to ease their workload and to provide stability for their family, right, their children, and for their children's children. I've never seen anything like that before. Right. So the it moment for me was saying, hey, I have a legacy that I want to uphold. Right. I have a father that's passed, and I want to make sure that I give my son, my future son or daughter, right, the stability that they need. That was my it moment. What was yours?
Yes, it was packaging up what my parents were trying to do for my sister and me. Mm-hmm. They made a conscious decision early, and they told us about it going through life, that they were trying to elevate us with the inputs, because they were young when they had us.
How?
20 and 18.
Oh, wow.
When they had us. And they made a conscious decision at really as teenagers, and this is actually incredible, to put the human development, the human condition skills in us: self-worth, self-value. These are the production skills that a human being needs. Right. And also, basic, finances, things, because they knew that they were really going to go and take us so far, but if they put education, self-worth, self-value, and introduced us to things, then we would be able to produce what we needed to achieve what we needed to do. Yeah. And so that was the aha moment. I was like, oh, okay, if I can package that up, and when I saw that process, I was like, oh, okay, this can be packaged and it can be transformative. Yeah. Because there is a thing called planning. And then as my career, went further, it got deeper, and then I started connecting into the life planning, and because then it started clicking into the things that I'm good at, which is the storytelling, which is the listening and connecting with people, and the empathy and the vulnerability and those things, because those things those are natural to me, because those are gifts that, God gives, but my parents gave me those, my sister gave me those, my grandmother, those purpose. Listening to my grandmother and my granddad tell us those stories, those oral history stories. Yeah. Okay, all right. Those are couch moments. All right. All of those. All right. They're called things now: fin size, story listening, reflective listening, empathy, vulnerability, all of these things these inputs that go into planning to match up with the mechanics. I know, getting the life money balance, and we'll talk about that later, but when you ask me about what made it click, it started there at that one point when I went back to tech, and I said, oh, okay, now we can package this up because I see what my parents were trying to do and could be transformative. Then as it started to progress later on, as I lived a little bit longer and went through some things, you talked about grit, because I had some failures in between there, just with personally and professionally. Then I matched that transformational thing, because I realized it could be packaged with all of those disconnects with life and match that up. And then I was like, oh, okay, then it can even be even more transformational. That's why I'm here now.
Let me ask you a question about what you said about having the resources, right? I think that so I play college football, right?
Yeah.
And I used to tell my running back coach, like, I want every tool in my toolbox because I never know when I'm gonna have to use them on the field, right? Mm-hmm. So whether it was catching, running, jumping, I wanted to be good at everything because I knew at some point during the course of a 4-quarter game, I would have to utilize one of these tools. And it sounds to you like you discovered through education that your parents were trying to give you tools to the best of their ability to go ahead and be a productive citizen and be stable in the world. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now,
yes, go ahead.
Let's get into life money balance, right? You've trademarked a quote or a phrase to give on to your clients. Can you explain what life money balance means to you and your demographic?
Yes, and it's a human demographic, and that's intentional, as far as its audience. It is about the human condition. Life money balance is. It is succinctly letting your life lead your money, and not your money leading your life. It is not to be reactive if you can, because and that came from personal experience. It was a long period of time in my life to where I was reacting to money all the time. Mm-hmm. And
you explained that in the beginning and saying like we would have events that would happen, right? Mm-hmm. That would force us to then recalibrate our plan. But go ahead.
Yeah, yes, and that was that. And we had times in our early childhood too, as far as our household is concerned, that we did have a plan. It may have gotten interrupted, and we didn't have that time to let it compound. Also, we had some times where we didn't have, where we were elevating our family, and we had opportunities to borrow from family to where we can, put money into a house or down payment in a house, but we had to pay that back. Again, there's no compounding there. What I'm getting at is that, particularly with life money balance and reacting to money in this construct, there's reacting to money A and there's reacting to money B, which is if there's no life design first, and I refer to this as a fog time in my personal life, to where if you're looking at your life and your money and there's no direction and there's no life design, where are we going? Mm-hmm. Where's the aspiration? Where's the alignment? And me personally, I was using my resources there was no direction there. So my money was leading, this lack of direction. Mm-hmm. And it was just going down a hole. And neither one of them had any direction. Yeah. So that was the leader. And at times I needed to sit down and do another terminology you have. So the money mechanics of an HSA is a health spending plan account. The other terminology, a psychology account that I came up with, is an honest self-audit.
I like that.
You have to sit down and say, well, what are we doing? And I did that for myself.
Right.
And that's
How
when
did you do that?
Well, that's when courage and honesty start kicking in. That's tough. That takes work and it takes a long time. That doesn't come right off the bat, but once it's done, it's good work. It's good work. That's that aha moment too. It's the 3 A's that I use, which is admit where you are, acknowledge how you feel about that, so you can process what that is, mm-hmm. and then you can take action, and that's the aha moment. Mm-hmm. Now that's a process, but once we get those 2 A's out the way, then we can get to the 3rd A. And that's when you start creating that life's design. And that's life, money, balance. And once they're aligned, letting your life lead your money and not your money lead your life, now we have inputs, we have information to inform the money mechanics of it.
Right.
And now they're aligned, because that's where I got the name for the company, actually, Concurrent. Now they're working in partnership.
Right.
Your life and your money.
Right.
And this is what we're talking about. And now we're talking about life, money, balance, and that's what it's all about. And that process is transformative. I used to have it as transformative process, Desarte. But then I rephrased it, because it's a transformative experience, and it is. And I don't use why anymore. It is a transformative experience, because when you go through that, then that's that it thing. That's that it thing.
What I know about financial planning is that once you are vulnerable with yourself, and you have the acknowledgement, right? You do that audit that you speak about, you are now left with a choice that you have to make. And the choice is the last A that you mentioned, which is action. And whether you act or not, that is an action, right? So like, if you choose to ignore the facts of whatever you've outlined in your plan, that's an action that will make you regress, or you can take actions that can help you progress. In talking about progression, I think that there's been a huge push to help educate communities, especially underrepresented communities. In what ways do you think that the advising community can do its part in trying to reach back and elevate those who were traditionally disenfranchised from some of the information and the advice and service that we're known to give?
I think that pro bono work is something that we could adapt in the profession, for sure. Particularly during the CFP element, which is, while someone's trying to aspire to get the CFP, then you do have to get some experience. I mean, that's a way to get some CFP hours. The continuing education element, I think I'm a champion for that. To use some of that CE time to get some to get some pro bono work, and the program leaders can use their programs to reach out to the community and leverage those programs and do that. For instance, I'm using a framework that's been used in other programs. I didn't create it, and then there's other programs like it. All right, but this one in particular, I'm leveraging off a framework that I've seen work before, which is to use some of the kids that are the students that are in these financial planning programs and have them give presentations to any really organization that will listen to fundamental financial education. And that encapsulates or includes underrepresented communities. And I want to say this, that financial education, everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. It is a blanket statement, and it so happens to capture underrepresented communities as well, because money is a human condition. It is about an experience. Money does two things. Money either jingles or it folds. All right. So if there is purpose behind the financial education initiative, all right, then we won't have underrepresented communities, all right? Because financial education, literacy, and the like, it is a public good. It is a human condition good, all right? So we shouldn't have underrepresented communities when we're talking about money.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's the way I handle it. All right. And that's why I handle my practice as well. I don't segment, because that's why I intentionally have life, money, balance as a human condition effort. And the second part of the first 3 A's with the ah moment, when you're talking about admit, acknowledge, and action, is the third. It's called part is A block, which is align, aspire, and achieve. You have 6 of those. It's also part of the human condition. So I wanted to just bring all that in about the human condition. When we're talking about money, it is a human condition.
It affects everybody.
It does. It does. And I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in that. And going back to education, when we wrap it up in a package of wellness, financial education, literacy, capability, sustainability, along with financial psychology and a financial plan. So we got FinEd, FinCap, FinLit, FinSus, FinSci, FinPlan. Then you have financial wellness. We're good. Now you have an elevated condition. Now you have an elevated human being. And then they can aspire to do what they like. And now you have purpose. And now we're getting somewhere.
I want to ask you this last question. If you could think back to, the efforts that your parents were trying to do for you, right? And the lessons and the values they were trying to instill in you, what would you tell your younger self? One piece of personal advice and one piece of business advice that you would give the younger Preston now, with all that you know.
Wow, man. Oh, we are in a chair. Not to hold so much in. Not to hold so much in, because it was that was the greatest thing in that fog period that I was telling you about. It cost so much time, energy, and money to unlock that stuff back out.
Yeah. When you think about hold something in, are you talking about like just the traumas of being a young black man in America, or talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
it was just that young black, but just being just going through anything at the time. It was social traumas. It was just being misunderstood, just as a whole, and then just growing up. I grew up in the suburbs. I experienced a lot, but I had opportunity as well, but I could tell you that there's two inputs that my family gave me, my mother and my father gave me, with self-worth and self-value. You have those two inputs, then you're 70% there if you have those, along with love, and then you can get a long way with those inputs. Also, too, it's very popular now, but my mother was an instiller of vulnerability and empathy. We could talk to my sister and I could talk to her about anything. I mean, we were very, we had access to her. We can be open and honest about anything. And I think I could have trusted her a little more with things. And even as I got older, I was always an old soul, still am. I'm 42 now, feel 62 in ways.
You look 25.
I wish at times, being a natural leader comes with gifts and curses. I wish, even in my earlier 20s, that I wish that I didn't think that I was running out of time. So I still want to tell myself, you have time. Trust more, talk more. I'm a big communicator now. I'm a big advocate of talking. Find someone to speak with and trust and talk things out, so as not to hold things in, because it costs a lot in monetary time and just human well-being, to unlock that and unpack that back out if it's bottled up.
And then one piece of business advice.
Business advice, know who you are. Know who you are, because if you know who you are, then that finds your path. It's okay not to be, a A-type person or entrepreneur. Don't be, I'm getting sick of people right now, saying all you got to be is an entrepreneur and go get this money and this, that, and the other. And that's not always the case. Be comfortable with who you are. And once that is defined, then you can go out and be who you want to be. And whatever that is, if that's a desk, cool. If that is whatever that production is, because it is about production. Whatever you use your human production to do, to produce some income, to take care of your household, and be purposeful in the world, that's cool as long as you know who you are and you're comfortable with it. That's business advice.
Well, I understand that. Know thyself, right?
Yes,
Know
we
thyself.
good.
Preston, it's been a pleasure. I want to make sure that people that are watching, if they want to follow what you're doing, they're able to. Where can they find you on the social media? And also drop your firm's website.
Yes, the firm's website, thank you very much, is concurrentfp.com, and Twitter and Facebook, and Twitter is Preston Cherry, and also Instagram is Dr. Preston Cherry as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Preston, and thank you all for watching yet another episode of The Human Advisor. If you want to follow up with all that we're doing here at Altruist, follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. I'm your host, Desarte Yarnway. We'll see you back here again soon.